the marketing stream. If you're new here, if you don't know who I am, I'm Vicki O'Neill, the Plateau to Grow marketer. And today I am going to review marketing through and post COVID-19. As we all know, this has been going on for months. And even though things are starting to open up in the US, I know they're starting to open up in other countries as well. And even in the US, it's been a gradual process. Different states are opening different things at different times, and it's going to continue down that path. As we all know, there are a lot of implications and impact to all types of businesses and even to consumers in their daily lives as a result of the COVID-19. And as a business, whether you're B2C or B2B, it's important to understand the changes that have happened in order to modify what you're doing with your marketing message. Now, I've mentioned this. If you listen to my podcast or if you read any of my blog posts, you'll know that I mention this frequently on my podcast episodes, the topics, and then just kind of integrating the whole COVID concept into the message overall. So it's something that's been continuous in my messages over the last few months. And I even have 4 different blog posts that I've written specifically for that topic and just what you can do with your marketing during the time. So it will be, hey, thanks for joining, Monique. Good morning. Thank you for being here. So it's important to understand the changes that are happening with your target audience so that you can modify your message accordingly. Now, regardless of what business you're in, it's important to understand not only where they are, but what phase they're in, because we're all adjusting and going back to our normal life or new normal as we're starting to know it as. And that requires some changes, not just as an individual and a consumer, but as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or even if you're working in a business itself and you're an employee of someone else. We've all gone through changes. And along with changes, it means that we have to change what we're doing and how we're communicating. And the most important thing that we can do is to just show compassion. Now, we've all been doing such a great job of that over these last few months. As businesses start to open up again, and as we start adjusting and modifying our marketing messages moving forward, as we continue to do that, it's important to just continue to have that compassion, continue to have the empathy and the understanding that people aren't, all in the same place. So you need to adjust your marketing message accordingly. So, and I'll show you those blog posts where they are on my website as well here in just a minute. But I've got some stats that I want to review just to kind of help put some perspective around where we are as humans, as consumers, and some things that we may need to consider as marketers or business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever your role is in business, and then also in marketing. So let me do this real quick and share this with, I'm going to share my screen with you and share screen. I'm getting more used to this whole Streamyard thing. It's pretty exciting. Yes, I'm going to try and do, oh, I have to get over here and get out of this. There we go. I'm going to share my second screen with you. As you can see here, guess what application I'm using? Canva. I created this presentation in Canva, so we'll review that here real quick. So these are just, this is a quote that I really like. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. And we're all in this space. I don't know of any businesses anywhere in the world that are exactly the same today as they were pre-COVID-19. And that means that there's been change, and change can be difficult. It can be difficult for us to embrace it, accept it, work through it, and then navigate our way back to it. So if it's difficult for us sometimes as individuals, and you've got all these different people who are navigating and doing things at different paces, then it's just something that we have to keep top of mind. So to put some focus in here, hey, Diana, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here. Yay, thank you. You made it to the live. That's awesome. So here's another This I actually pulled from a presentation that I saw. As you can see, I don't know if you guys can, let me try and expand this a little bit more. There we go. Now you can see it better. This I got, as you can see, from Mathew Sweezey. He's actually one of my new favorite people. He wrote this book, which if you're a marketer, it's a great book. And he's associated with Mark Schaefer, who of course is one of my favorite marketing people too, and somebody I had on my podcast. So he had created this presentation, and I happened to see it this morning. I wanted to make sure I got his name on here and gave him credit because he invested time to create this. But I think it shows a great overview of where we were during the pandemic, like what we're calling the new normal. And then he's even creating, or the industry, the stats, the marketing, the businesses are looking at it too as like a next normal. So there's going to be some recovery timeframes. And I think what's most interesting is that the recovery timeframes, which this kind of gave me new perspective, is that even though businesses are starting to open up again, it's going to take time for us to even get back to a pre-COVID timeframe. So as business owners, as marketers, in trying to communicate with our target audience, it's important for us to understand that. And I really hadn't given that any thought until I saw this presentation. I mean, I've been talking about it for months, but it really resonated with me when I saw this slide. And then he had a bunch of other slides in there too that were extremely helpful. But it's just because our businesses are opening up, it doesn't mean that, we're going to go back to the way things were, and it's going to take time. So as you can see from this, we had the shutdown, and we've got the new normal that's starting, and it's going to take time to adjust into what, where we'll start seeing some positive economic outcomes actually occur. And some stats to keep in mind. And again, these are consumer stats, but your target audience, and even we are all consumers, right? So some things to keep in mind are the timing. Recovery to begin in 4 months past the bans being listed. I was like, oh my gosh. But some restaurants will take 48 months to reach the pre-COVID levels. And if you think about it, most of the restaurants, at least in Ohio, a lot of the restaurants have remained open during the COVID and the lockdown. They were doing that, but they had the curbside pickup, delivery. You could, drive through if they had that capability. Everything that was like outside of the restaurant, they continued operating, but obviously not at the capacity that they were pre-COVID. So even though there is a lift on the lockdown, it's still going to take, according to McKinsey, like 2 years to even try. 2 years, 4 years. 48 months is 4 years. I need to do that quick math in my head, right? 48 months, so 4 years to actually go back to the recovery timeframe. In the presentation, he actually did show some different statistics and just, some line graphs to show how, like where we are right now. And he used pizza places, and then I think was luxury, like retailers, just to kind of get some perspective around those numbers, but showed like the increase in the incline and how long it's actually going to take. So let me see. Monique's got a question. Let me pull this up. Oh, I can go back to the other screen, right? What's the name of the book again? Oh, it's The Context Marketing Revolution, and it's by Mathew Sweezey. Whoops, over here. Yep, Mathew Sweezey. It's a great book. The book by Mark Schaefer was Marketing Rebellion, which he talks a lot about just going back to being human to human interaction and just the customer journey. So a lot of great innovative thoughts and trends and what to expect in the future in regards to marketing and it being a customer-centric messaging and a customer-centric market. And then Mathew actually goes into the context of marketing, and it's just a really good book. And in the entire presentation that he shared on, I think it was on LinkedIn, was actually phenomenal. So thank you for asking that question. Diana, I think a lot of people are still nervous about getting back to the past normal. Yeah, I really don't think, and even like a lot of what I'm reading, it was included in this research as well. I don't think that we're ever going to get back to our past normal. I think it's too different now. Restaurants, they might be an exception. Some of those might be an exception, but if it's going to take 4 years, plus everything else is going to be changing in that time, once they reach that level, it would be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison, be like pre-COVID and after COVID, and see what those metrics or those benchmarks are that they're measuring. Hey, Scully's House of Thrillers, thanks so much for being here. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping in and saying hi. It was good to see you and Pat's live this morning too. Monique, the Context Marketing Revolution. Yes, you are welcome. I'm glad I could share that with you because it is a really good book. So some more of the stats, we'll get back to those. The behaviors that we need to pay attention to is that 60.4% of consumers expect to have less physical interaction in the new normal. So if you're a business that thrives on in-person interaction, then that might need to be adjusted for you. And Monique, I know that you work with people and animals, but it would be interesting to hear from you too, just to see what you're experiencing with, working with individuals, if you've seen a decrease or if you've anticipated some changes that you might have to make with your business in order to accommodate those people who do want to have less physical activity, outside of their home. Go back here and see this. Your channel is going to be awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support too. And thank you for showing up to the lives. I really appreciate you being here and continuing to show up. That's awesome. Digital, Google shows that during COVID, there were 4 times more searches for data plan upgrade. So what does that mean? That means that there's more people that are working online, and because they were at home, they were doing more things. They needed to change their plans. And in order to, if you're changing your plans, that means that you're going to have more interaction. Now, can they take a step back down? Sure, they can do that. But a lot of people are just finding that the ease of doing things from home and just wanting to have that safety and just to remain healthy. There's a whole appreciation for people wanting to remain healthy too. So being at home, as I put at the bottom, staying home is the new going out. So keep that in mind, that if you're a business that needs that interaction with people, that it's likely going to change. Definitely a change in photography. Thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah, it would be interesting, Monique, to hear, and you and I could probably have a conversation about this at some point, just more out of curiosity, is that, what that looks like, and, if there's been a decrease in your business as well, or if there's just a different way that you're approaching your business, because with photography, obviously you have to be in person. And I'm assuming that the social distancing isn't a problem because you're not doing up close, and personal shots, but so it may not impact your business as much. And it's a great example too of just the differences in our businesses and how different each is. And then also how we can all embrace the statistics or just how we're operating our businesses too. If we look at the spend, products sold on discount, this was actually a very interesting statistic. Products sold on discount hit an all-time high of 45% compared to the 29% on discount during like a Cyber Monday. That to me is huge. And if you think about it, people are operating on a tighter budget. So if they're operating with a tighter budget, they're obviously going to be looking for the discounts or the sales. Or as I point out in the next statistic, is that consumers are stepping down from brands. So there were statistics around people going from name brands to generic brands or, organic type brands that aren't as well known. And the reason being, for the most part, is that they want to save money. And I think that's really the biggest point moving forward, outside of not wanting to be in person or have any type of, physical contact with people for a long time. That the other thing is that, people are strapped. They don't have as much money to spend on things either. So depending on what type of business you're in, that may play a part in your business too. Okay, let's go down to the next slide. And I've only got a few of these, so don't think it's like a webinar or presentation or anything. I just thought that these statistics were applicable to understanding the market at an extremely high level, and information that you can use to incorporate what you're doing with your marketing to understand what changes you might need to make in the process. So you need to, I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to do this whole screen because it's just easier to read from here. So from a business buyer perspective, if for B2B buyers, we still need to keep those statistics in mind, even from a consumer standpoint, because businesses are just as strapped as consumers are. We've all been watching the news. We've been seeing the information. We're starting to see the numbers of actual businesses that are going under. They're having to close their doors. They're not just filing for, bankruptcy. They're actually having to close all their doors, and they're going to stop existing altogether. So it is having a huge impact on businesses and business buyers as well. So you need to meet the consumers in their way. In this, I talk so much about, I think this goes back to the very first time I talked about was episode three of my podcast, where I talk about personas. And I talk about that and understanding who your target market is. Now, what this is talking about is the same thing, but now we're in this, during going towards post-COVID-19 marketplace. And it's not just putting your consumers in personas, but now it's understanding how those personas have changed. How have they changed with buying or interacting or engaging or even their overall needs. So if you had someone that was in person and now they're online and that's how they plan on doing business, how do you have to modify your marketing messages in order to take that into consideration? We know a lot more people were online during that time, obviously, whether they were just, transitioning from an office to working from home or just altogether having to do more things online. So think of business recovery in 3 different ways. I'll maximize the screen again. Stability, avoiding short-term risks and stabilizing their operations. So where a business may have had more capacity to take risks, whether they were short-term or long-term, most likely short-term, they're now not going to be doing that. They need to focus on how can I keep my business and my operations stable and maintain what I've got right now through the entire process before I can go back to a new normal or a next normal. Let me see what Diana has asked. I think the discount depends on the product. Webcams went up, clothing went down. Yes, that is a great point, Diana. It definitely depends on the product and probably depends on what's in high demand. So it makes sense that webcams went up, relatively speaking, because more people were working from home. So, and they were going to have to use Zoom for that. So it's kind of a good and a bad. It's if you're a webcam provider or manufacturer, that's good, right? Because now you're going to have more demand for your product. At the same time, those people are probably or likely taking a cut and had to still maintain any type of communication through a webcam, and now the prices are up. So it's probably a catch-22 regardless, but that was, that was a great point to make. Hey, April, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you joining me live. Thank you. Oh, you came in through both of the accounts. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. Okay, so business buyer, let's get back to this real quick. And then if we think of back to work, planning and orchestrating how businesses are starting that process. Some have already gone back to work. There's some businesses that are just, they're still starting to reopen, but yet their employees are still working from home. Are they transitioning or are they not? Where are they going to be spending that time? And their marketing is going to, if you're marketing to those individuals, you need to understand what that is and when they're actually happening. Because if you continue to, it's just like the transition before when it was, how things were before, and then everybody was online. I use an easy to relate to example is that if you were creating commercials and they were, on the radio and people were listening to the radio on the way to work, that no longer existed because everybody was at home. So now you have to transition and move that money that you were spending on radio and move it online, and then come up with a whole new strategy for how you're going to reach those people and get their attention, create the awareness. Hey, I'm over here now. That takes time, and you have to understand what's happening with those individuals and where they're spending their time and what they're going through, so that not only are you moving your marketing dollars from radio to online in that example, but you're also changing the messaging. Before, it could have been more about like an event that you were having, or a new product that you were releasing, or hey, here's how we use our services, stop in our showroom. Well, now it's completely different. You're online, and you just need to understand where that information needs to go, because that is going to depend on if they're going to receive it or not. So growth. A lot of businesses probably aren't thinking of growth right now, but at some point over time, they're going to accelerate how they're changing in order to grow towards that next normal. And that requires planning, that requires strategy, and that requires understanding. So marketing perspective, agile efforts, and that goes to, your teams. So it's about people, it's about your operations, and it's also about, like I'd mentioned, your personas, and just understanding the changes that are happening with all of those. Adapt your messaging. That happens with, instead of global or the personas, it's looking at those different moments that are happening along the customer journey and evaluating whether or not the messaging that you've got there is going to resonate. Does it make sense for where they might be at that point in the journey? And there, you might find through your research and just having those conversations with your customers that there's a lot more micro moments now than there were, like maybe milestone moments or macro moments. And that makes sense, because when you have change, sometimes you have to adapt to that and have smaller pieces in order to get them from, point A to point Z, and connect the dots between those. Connect the dots. I love that term. Evolve your brand, incorporate any new normals into what you're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean changing your logo or changing your colors, but if you're doing something new or doing something different that needs to be associated with who you are or who your brand is, then that's important to communicate. And I'm a fan of communication. I don't think you can ever over communicate. So consider how that might affect the perception of your brand and whether or not you need to make any of those changes. Expand to self-service. Here, I'll expand this back out so you guys can see it. Expand self-service. Let me see if I've got. Hey, Andy. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, that's great that you and April know each other. I love it when there's people that come in and they already know each other. That is awesome. Fun will now commence. Thanks for being here. Great to see you in the live stream here, and then also on in Pat's. I know that I've been hit or miss here the last week, but it's so good when I see you there. I appreciate it. Andy, of course, the content is rock star quality. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your support. And April, also a fan of communication, is super critical for relationship building. It really, really is. That's what relationships are all about. They're all based on communication, whether it's work or whether it's personal. So we need to look at expanding self-service. So looking at the stats that I just reviewed, but then also any new ways of doing business. Scaling the human. This is all about looking at the personality of your brand. And it could be just having more people. If you're in a company and you've got multiple people there, but you've only had maybe one person being like the face of the company, now's the opportunity to get everyone on board and have more people being consistent, of course, with the messaging and the voice of the company. But let your prospects and let your customers see who you are and who your team is, so that they can relate to everyone and keep that connection that you've spent all that time and effort building with your customers, but then also start building that more so with your prospects. Everyone's still kind of on like this protective mode. Like, I need to protect, my money and my family and my physical being and my health. And, people are still in that space. So we need to respect that. And we need to understand that that's part of this change process and also moving forward. So showing our personality, showing our compassion, showing our understanding, that's all part of this process as well. And all of that can be included in your marketing efforts. Okay. Oh, it's Roy. Sorry. I see that and I see April's picture. So I assume that it's her in both of them. So I apologize. Thank you, Roy, for being here as well. It's good to see you here too. And then also it's about what's working and what's not. So we have our pre-COVID and we've got some information in during COVID, and we're starting to get to the post-COVID. We've got all kinds of analytics, right? So if it's website, you've got Google Analytics. If it's social media, you can get the analytics from each of your channels. And you can start really diving into that data and finding out what's working now. And if you compare that to the pre-COVID, then you might see some drastic differences. And that in itself can be extremely enlightening to understand where the opportunities are for increasing your marketing message and showing your personality and incorporating the compassion. Data doesn't lie. It'll tell you exactly what you need to look at and exactly where you need to be spending your time. And if it shows that there's more people going to your website and you've been spending most of your time on Facebook, then you need to do some adjustments, right? So just pay attention to those and look at what changes that you need to make, and moving forward with like the events and the communications, et cetera. I'll expand this back out so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The events, the communications, the products, and just understanding that data that you look at where people are spending time, that it's important to adjust what you're doing from a marketing perspective to accommodate that. So, and then just a few things to look at. And these are 4 things that I pulled from one of my blog posts. And I will actually pull that up here for you because I want to show that I've got these other. So if you go to my website, here, I'll do this too. Put this banner up so you guys can see it. I'm starting to use Streamyard better. So this is all part of the learning process. So here's a banner. Yeah, so all of my blog posts, you can just go to vickyo'neill.com and then just click blog. It's easier than giving you this entire string here. But if you scroll down, I've got 4. Yeah, so 4. And let me click this back up and get back here. You can see here that I've got marketing in times of uncertainty, 5 ways to stay relevant during COVID, 5 things you can do now to keep moving forward, and then time to reevaluate your target audience. I think I pulled those 4 things that I just showed you from this article. Yeah, so here they are: customer purchase patterns, time, customer service inquiries, and engagement with your content. And these are just things that you can look at to find out, what's happening with your market and your target audience, and then some changes that you can make to those as well. And again, this is all about making sure that your target audience knows where you are. And again, they could have changed. So that's why it's reevaluate. It's always a good time to reevaluate and make sure that what you're doing is working for them. Okay, so let me go back here. It looks like I've got a couple more messages. Diana, YouTube is really blowing up because more people are at home wanting to learn things. Yes, I have noticed that too. And I think, Diana, you may have mentioned that in something that you posted or in an email. I think for some reason, I'm thinking I heard that from you. Andy, excellent advice about current events and honoring folks' protective stance, and also honoring the need to amplify and support our POC friends who are struggling with their everyday challenges. Yeah, it's so important to just understand that we're all in different places emotionally. Physically, we're probably, a lot of us are still at home, but emotionally, just how we handle not just change in general, but the impact that it's had on our lives is like super important. So thank you, Andy, for mentioning that. That is so true. April, why do most people spend most of their time listening to other people's content when they could be investing more of their time building relationships? Which do you think is more important and why? I don't think one is more important than the other. I'm a fan of being a lifelong student, so I love to learn. And I think that's probably what a lot of people are doing now too. Also because it's a time of uncertainty and people they don't know if their job, how secure it might be, or if they might lose it at any time. They may be learning and just going online and connecting more with new people to learn more as a way to help prepare themselves for what that next step might be in their life or in their career. Relationships, I think, are super important. April, we know that. Andy, Diana, Monique, Roy, all of us who are here know that building relationships are extremely important. And you actually find out about new educational opportunities through relationships. So I just think those two are both very important. And I don't think one's more important than the other one, but that could just be me. Hey, April, is it time for me or Vicki O'Neill showing up in her video more professional looking since she started using Streamyard? I know Streamyard, right? I'm hoping this is more professional, having all of these pop up instead of me just talking and just looking at me. That can get boring after a while, right? You're thinking the same thing. I took a screenshot. We'll use it as a before and after picture for Vicki before Streamyard and now during using Streamyard. Thank you so much, Roy. I appreciate that. I don't know if you were on the Pat Flynn live stream this morning, but there was somebody who had been doing screenshots over the 83 days that he was going live. And I think he had like 339 screenshots. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Hopefully he shares that with all of us. That's pretty cool that you're doing that. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that is just some things to keep in mind as we move forward with the new normal and actually, this next normal. And, if not now, when are we going to do that? Let me know if you guys are already, what you're seeing, if there's any changes that you're making with your marketing and, just differences that you're finding with engaging with your prospects or your customers. Do you see them kind of being like, holding back and being less engaging? Like maybe there's some changes and they're taking some extra time to adjust to the changes that have happened in their life, both personally and professionally? Or have you seen like an increase in engagement because they're at home now and they have access, easy and quick access to digital and being able to connect and engage with people? I would love to hear from you guys. Let's see here. I think how you have part of the slideshow, you like how or now your browser screen overlapping into the live stream frame. Thank you. I appreciate that. Fun will now commence. Let me know what your name is so that I can say your name instead of that. I love that handle though. Fun will now commence. I love that. I'm all about incorporating fun into business because it just makes it a lot more interesting and more engaging. And it kind of puts allows them to put their walls down too. Yes, that was Consult a Blind Guy. Roy and I have thousands upon thousands of screenshots for documentation purposes before and after. That is awesome. I love that you guys are doing that. I think that's key to show progress and growth, both personally and professionally. And what a great way to do that, right? I'm sure that when Consult a Blind Guy puts that together, it'll be like this huge, like, aha, wow moment for Pat too when he sees that, because he didn't realize that he was doing that until today either. So that is awesome. Diana, I'm getting a lot more people to agree to coffee chats now that everyone is not afraid of Zoom. Yeah, I think a lot of people were afraid of Zoom, weren't they? Just because they felt like they had to be on camera all the time. And I know I was, and as you guys can see right now, I was just like, I don't have to always straighten my hair and make it look all, perfect. I'm like, I'm just keeping my hair up on top of my head today. And it's the same thing with Zoom, is I think people realize that, hey, I can be on camera, but I can also be a little bit more relaxed in my overall appearance. Guys don't have to be, tied, jackets. They could wear a sweatshirt if they wanted to. So that's good. I'm so glad, Diana, that you're finding more people are reaching out to you for those coffee chats, because I know you are extremely helpful with the online course development and just really how-tos. You're great at those technical details of just walking through step by step and understanding people and where they are too. So that's awesome that you're seeing more of that too. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. Simon Sinek. Ah, yes, that is so true. I love him. He is a great person to follow. He is. I love him. Diana, would love to check out your coffee chats. Do you stream your Zoom to Facebook? So yeah, that's for Diana to answer. Yeah, April, if you want how-tos or just somebody with who's great at technical and understanding differences between different applications, Diana's your person. And she's also phenomenal at creating online courses. So if there's anything that you and Roy were wanting to do with online courses with either one of your businesses, then I highly recommend that you check her out. She's really good. Okay. Is there any questions that you guys have for me before I jump off of here? First, I want to say thank you so much for being here and joining me live. This has been a great engagement, great questions. I love the fact that we're all interacting live. I'm starting to get used to this, and I'm glad that the screens and the change in appearances too is helping a lot. So hopefully that will help bring you back each week when I'm going live. If there aren't any other questions, of course, I'll be checking the comments later too. So if there's something that comes to you and you want my help with anything, I'd be more than happy to answer the question or obviously help you with anything that you need. Don't forget to go to the blog if you want to see some previous the posts that I wrote. Hopefully they'll be helpful. And if you're, I think everybody that's here is already subscribed, but if you're not, go ahead and don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave. That would be great, because then you'll hit that bell notification and you'll know when I go live, and then also when I upload any new videos. Let me also know if this was helpful. If you want me to continue on this topic, like I mentioned, we're going to be going through this phase for a long time. If I need to get more specific on, how to do certain things on maybe specific platforms, I can help. Or if there's something in particular, like you're more interested in, understanding how to do something specifically through this phase on Instagram, then I can help as much as I can, or I could always bring a guest on too. And I'm more than happy to share the screen with other people to get that through. So let me check real quick and see. I guess I should probably put on my my glasses, right? Great stream. Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Thanks, Monique. Oh, awesome. Well, I hope it was extremely helpful. April. Oh, okay. Diana, I'll let you put your link, or if you want to share that with April, your videos on YouTube, which are awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here, you guys. I really appreciate you joining me live, the engagement, the questions. Love it. Hopefully I'll see you back next week. And if there's ever anything I can do, let me know. Until then, make today great.